Kia ora. Today we are looking at the role of Treasurer Secretary and the candidates for that in this year's VUWSA elections. My name is Neva, I am from Salient, and I will be hosting the discussion today. And we're here with Amelia. She's joining us from Auckland on Zoom, hence why I've got my headphones. And she can see me here on my phone, but you guys will be able to see her on the screen, so that shouldn't be an issue. So we're just going to kick off with your introduction, so a little bit about you, perhaps like your policies, whatever you think is necessary to say, you know.
Thank you. All right. Kia ora koutou. My name's Amelia. I'm a fourth year student studying economics, environmental science and geography, and I'm running again to be your Treasurer Secretary. It's been an absolute privilege to be in this role for 2021 as I fought to make VUWSA and the university a more transparent, accessible and equitable place for students. In my role this year, I'm proud to have updated our constitution and many of our official documents, consulted with students to create a 2022 budget which funds sustainability and student equity, and work to double VUWSA's funding for equity and representative groups. With this institutional knowledge and my determination to keep fighting for students, I'm excited to continue my work to improve VUWSA and the university. For 2022, I want to prioritise accountability, accessibility and advocacy. We need to empower students to hold VUWSA and the university to account. I'm going to continue to push for better consultation with students so that our foundational documents and how we spend our money reflects what students want. I also want to see better co-design and consultation from the university. Right now, millions of our student services levy goes to occupancy charges rather than actual services. I'm going to push for more transparency about where our money is going and fight to get it directed to the essential services that are so severely underfunded at our university. Secondly, VUWSA services need to be more accessible. This year, we worked with VISA to expand the community pantry into the international office. Small changes like these can make a big difference into the lives of students. I'd like to continue to push to expand our distribution of menstrual products and community pantry bags across the campuses. And finally, VUWSA is not the only student association on campus. Ngāi Tawera, our TTRT partner association, deserve better funding and support. So do our rep groups. I want to continue to push for better training and financial support for everyone. I want to establish a VUWSA scholarship service where we support clubs on campus to apply for external funding opportunities. This year, VUWSA worked with UniQ, Ngāi Tawera and Rainbow Law to apply for $25,000 for the next 3 years to host Pride Weeks. Initiatives like these can take some of the burden off of our rep groups and achieve better outcomes for students. So let's continue to push for accountability, accessibility and advocacy. If any of this sounds like something you might be interested in, vote Amelia as your 2022 VUWSA Treasurer Secretary.
Amelia, that was a great start there. What we're going to do now is go through a few questions that have been submitted by the student body. Some of them we're asking all candidates today and some of them are just specific to your role. We're going to get started with a question that we're asking everyone today, and that is, what is a previous cause or campaign that VUWSA has championed that has affected you, and how has it affected you?
I think something that I would say is like quite near and dear to my heart, which has also been something I've tried to help work on this year, is the menstrual products. As like someone with a uterus, everyone with a uterus or who has periods like knows how terrible it can be when you get your period and you don't have any supplies around you, and you might not have the cash to like go out and buy them because they can be quite pricey. So there have been countless times throughout my university experience where I've really, really appreciated the free menstrual products around campus. And then also the WA Cup, which I purchased in second year as well, which was like heavily discounted. And I really appreciated VUWSA like recognizing how there can be like quite a lot of like shame around period products and like a lot of stigma about like asking for help in that way. And so trying to make them accessible and like distribute them around campus was something that helped lessen the shame for me and also like, you know, saved me a lot in a pinch. So that's something that's been like affected my life personally, and it's something that I've tried to keep pushing forward this year and keep expanding the locations where those are available.
Great answer. You mentioned in your campaign last year that more financial assistance was needed with COVID-19 in terms of helping out students, and obviously we've seen in the past couple of weeks this sort of big announcement from the government about the 20 million for the hardship funds. Do you think that we need more funding? Do you think our COVID funding is working? What's your sort of stance on that?
Look, across the board, we absolutely need more funding. Students need more funding. Student associations need more funding. As someone who actually currently sits on our student hardship board at the university, it's a really essential service. It's really important to have that opportunity for students to seek help when they're in financial need. But this is also a structural issue, it is too expensive to be a student anywhere, especially in Wellington. Housing costs, cost of living, it's just, it's inaccessible. It's ridiculous. It's gone completely out of hand. You look at, a rent for a single room can be $250 in Wellington, and that's just completely unacceptable. So yes, I think we need more funding in our student hardship area. We need more funding for our student organisations so that we can continue to push the universities and government for more funding. But I think there also does need to be structural change. I've heard people talk about like a universal basic income for students, or just a universal basic income in general, or trying to build more housing directly for students. So yes, more funding for student hardship, but also structural changes are needed.
With the structural changes, I've heard that with the student hardship board at alert level 2 and higher, the student consultation isn't as strong, or perhaps not there at all, due to efficiency, or at least that's what the university term is for it. Would this be something you'd be looking to change if that's the case?
Yes, so to answer your question, my understanding is that at level 2, student hardship does invite students. So myself and Ralph, who currently sit on it, we are invited at level 2. At level 3 and 4, that unfortunately wasn't able to happen. And I think that is absolutely because they just get insufficient funding. So I know, because we were in communication with them over lockdown, that they were just inundated by students who were asking for help. And they didn't have the resources or capacity to host the Student Hardship Fund discussion that we have every Wednesday. I don't think that's necessarily their fault. It's just due to capacity and funding issues. But yeah, we reached out to them and said, look, we're here if you need it. They recommended that we get on top of community pantry. And so we made sure to purchase a whole bunch more community pantry food so that we could hit the ground running at level 2 when students came back to campus. But yeah, going forward, it would be really good to have a plan in place so that we can be part of those discussions at level 3 and 4.
Do you have a specific plan to perhaps get an increase in funding for whether it be VUWSA or in other areas? You've talked about a few plans and things that you've been working on with, was it UniQ for Pride Week and that sort of thing, and the Vic Rainbow Law students? Have you got other initiatives like that?
Yeah, so VUWSA needs more funding. And not just VUWSA, but Ngāi and our rep groups, we need more funding. Capacity is really stretched and there's really limited support. And so I would really like to push AXL, which is the kind of government body, the university body which decides how much funding we get. I'd like to push them for a long-term plan to increase the funding that we all get, because at the moment we get 6% of the student services levy, which is way low compared to every other student association, and that has ripple effects. It means we can't fund Salient, it means Ngāi is not getting funding, it means our rep groups don't get the support they need. So I'd be pushing internally with AXL, but also externally. So I talked about how we teamed up with Ngāi Rainbow Law and UniQ to apply for the Rainbow Wellbeing Fund, where we applied for $25,000. So it's an external approach and internal approach, I reckon.
Yeah, for sure. And just sort of rounding out on things we've talked about, how will students know you've achieved this come next year? So say they're looking at this campaign, you could even look at it in the context of last year perhaps, students looking at your campaign now, how do they know you've achieved the goals that you've set out to?
That's a really good question. I would say that there are accountability measures. So my work reports, everything I do there, and my half-year reports and my annual reports are all made available on our website. And we also have our AGM and our IGM. And so when I present the budget next year, I hope that we can tell students hey, we're not going to have to run a deficit because we got $100,000 more funding. So I hope that those mechanisms will help to keep me accountable and help keep things transparent.
Was a conflict of interest, whether it be yourself, whether you're a member of another club or a rep group and then you were working out some funding for them, or whether it be a view that you and perhaps other youth executives held on an issue that you needed student consultation on, and the student consultation came back with a different viewpoint to you, how would you deal with that conflict of interest? Would you be able to set it aside professionally?
Yes, absolutely. So I've tried to consult quite a bit with students and with rep groups and with other executive members this year. So we put forward the proposed budget and asked students to give their feedback and see what they thought. And yeah, not every piece of student feedback was a piece that I necessarily thought of or agreed with, but it's really important to incorporate that because we're meant to represent the students. And so you need to put your own personal opinions aside and do what you're elected to do, which is to represent the students at Te Herenga Waka.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. Any last messages you'd like to send out to the student body?
And no, other than vote for me for Treasurer Secretary.
Perfect. Thank you very much. That was Amelia. She is running to be the Treasurer Secretary for the VUWSA Executive.